We have a lot on the agenda, so we'll try to get through as quickly as possible. I'm going to try to condense it down. Our plan is we'll go through the pledge, get through the approval of the previous, well, we don't have the previous meetings. We'll get those submitted out in the next little bit. Dan, Snyder County. And then we'll suspend our regular business to vote on the TOA for COVA to Mercy, and then we'll resume our regular business from there. So if we can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rick, do you want to come up to the table? You want to come up to the table for the Mercy TOA? You want to just go over that we received the fitness and competency back from the state, it's approved. We need somebody to make a motion to accept it, and then we can take a roll call vote.
Okay. Transfer of ownership, the County Committee received the application from Mercy EMS, take ownership of COVA. The application was deemed completed by the committee. That application was sent to the state. The state approved the application, and now we just need to vote on it. I need a motion from the floor for the motion to accept.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we'll just have to do a roll call vote, put that on the record, and then we'll resume normal business. We'll have. Do you need? You have that, right?
I'm gonna go off of this and then I'll transfer.
So for the vote, basically, as it stands now, there are technically 10 voting members from each county that can actively vote. So if you're an alternate from your county and we don't call your name, it's because all 10 representatives from your county showed up. If we don't call your name, or if we do call your name, you're eligible to vote. Basically we're just gonna go in alphabetical order. So if there's 9 people that are from the one county and there's one alternate, but all alternates are here, don't feel that your vote doesn't count. It's just we're gonna go in alphabetical order off that, so.
Over there. 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's excused. We need, yeah,
Which, oh,
that's excused.
okay, I'm excused.
That's
So
excused
we have
there,
to go
too.
down to here.
Cheers.
Did everybody sign in?
Fred.
Fred, because Fred's a full-fledged member.
Yep.
Oh, Ed didn't sign in either.
Oh.
Oh, look at Ed trying to sneak in. Leaving Lisa over there by herself.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to pick her out of the crowd. I'll be over, Lisa. Hello. She's all good.
And you're on this
I'm on
at
that.
the
Thank
bottom?
you. Yes. Don't let me hold you up. Don't let me hold you
No,
up.
I gotta get
Oh,
my
no,
count
we're gonna-
right before I end up going.
Ed Major, everybody. Happy birthday, Ed.
happy birthday.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going down to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Down to here. 1, 2, 3. So everybody on that one. All right. Wow. People didn't show. Pissed me off.
If you want to use that, you can mark them on here.
I'm just gonna
whenever
put
you- Okay.
a quick, and then I was gonna transfer it over.
Perfect.
All right, starting with Niagara County. David Cole.
Yep.
Let's see. Sarah
Sandy Dyson.
or Sandy Dysard.
Yes.
Thomas Egert. Andrew Knoll.
Yes.
Sarah McCartan.
Yes.
I didn't have to say her last name.
Sherry Reichel.
Sherry Reichel.
Yes.
Jonathan Schultz.
Yes.
Chad Shepard.
Yes.
Does the doc vote?
Yes, he's a member.
Okay. Naveen Seth.
Yes.
And Dan Levin.
Yes.
You just do the 10 per county.
Yep.
Okay. Because I was gonna say we won't get it out of ours. David Birch,
Yes.
Scott Buffin,
Yes.
Brianna Caldwell. Excuse. Kristen McAdoo. So we go to Tiffany Pertry.
Yes.
Fred Payano. Anna Schooner.
Yes.
Mike Fuller.
Yes.
Jerry Benty.
Yes.
Excused. Sue Maslin.
Yes.
Actually, well, just a guess.
I don't know, we can add
Stephen.
Yeah, Steve.
Stephen Bulks.
Yes.
Okay. Genesee County. Rick Brunier.
Yes.
Sean Downing. Yes. John Duran.
Yes.
Christopher Sicapano.
Yes.
Brianna Smith.
Yes.
Bob Youngflesh.
Yes.
Okay. So we have 25 affirmative votes. So the motion passes.
So we'll give that back to you.
I'll get this back to you so you can send
You can
that
send it
in.
off to the state.
Send it up.
Yep.
That'll be good. All right, thank you, guys. All right, moving on. Like I said, for the previous minutes, we're trying to get caught up from when Lori left and with Sean taking over. So by our next meeting in June, we'll have the meeting minutes from those previous minutes up and posted and sent out to you guys so you guys can review and we can vote en masse to approve those in June. All right, my report. So there's a lot has happened since our last meeting. We unfortunately missed our meeting in February, one short for quorum. We've had two REMSCO meetings since then. I'll try to be as brief as I can, as there's a lot that's happened. There's a lot we have to talk about. So the sustainability tag, the white paper is out and for everyone's review. I think I sent that out to everybody. If I didn't, I can send that out again. There's about 25 recommendations in there for improvement of the EMS system. Sarah and Rob and were very integral from our part in Western New York. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that or say?
Why are you looking at me?
You always have something to say.
You usually do, yeah.
It was a lot of work. If you haven't taken a look at it, feel free to download it. I think it's really the 25 initiatives that were put out are pretty much what you should just focus on. Like the paper itself is like 79 pages, I think. So a lot of it is just the justification behind it. And, you know, I would advise that if you have, you know, time down the road to take a look at the whole thing, but just take a look at the 25 initiatives. I think that's the big, it's like page 9 or something.
Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to it?
Working with the over 50 people that work together across the state, we spent, it was supposed to be a year-long project, turned into almost a 2-year project. And it was proof that EMS people can work together to achieve things. It also focused, brought into strong focus that as a career, as an occupation, we are very fractured, and we need to start coming together as a community in order to get the changes we want to see. So it really brought into light that if we can get over 50 people across the state to create this white paper, we can bring all EMS providers together to achieve better things for ourselves and have a sustainable future.
Anybody have any questions on sustainability white paper? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll hit Rob up real quick again for, Rob has been named the chair for the program agency tag. Rob, do you want to touch on that?
Well, we obviously just started, but, you know, overall, our job is to support these bodies and these, making sure that you guys are doing what you need to do and that we move EMS forward. I don't really have a lot at this point. At the last state meeting, our discussions pretty much surrounded around Part S, which I'm sure Amy's gonna get quite in depth in on, but the other thing that we've been discussing at the program agency level is that there's a new platform that's eventually gonna roll out that's gonna really help with analyzing the data. All this delayed data that we've been asking you to collect over the last year and a half, you know, coming up on 2 years, is now gonna start showing the benefits of all that data, okay? The new platform is gonna be easy to use. It's called Biospatial. You'll be able to go in there. You can analyze all sorts of different things. I mean, there's really no limit to what you can really look at as far as the data goes. So just be aware that at some point in time, hopefully this year, that'll be coming out.
Thank you, Rob. All right, under the REMSCO leadership in January, we voted on a new chairman is Mike McAvoy. First vice chair is Jason Haig. Second vice chair is Dave Violante. It is a 2-year term going forward. So those will be your EMS leadership at the REMSCO level for the next few years. Some other operations. The chairman of the REMSCO, or the past chairman, Mark Philippi, Dr. Jeremy Cushman, and Deputy Director Steve DeZura met with FIPIC in February, which is the hospital governing body. They were given some time to speak on hospital clear times and hospital wall times that we've seen an uptick and we've all experienced in the last few months, in the last few years. Seemed to be a good conversation. Hopefully we'll get some update at our next meeting in May and how that conversation went, any potential changes that the hospital system's looking to help alleviate that stress and burden on EMS. The state is currently out doing full service inspections. I think everybody knows this by now. It's kind of been a hot button notice to everybody that COVID is pretty much over. They're back out. If you need help with your full service inspection, feel free to reach out to Rob and Mike at UBMD, mostly Mike, and they will be more than willing to help do a pre-inspection with you, go over the itemized list that the state uses, and we'll basically strongly point out the areas that you need improvement on before the state comes out, so you'll be ready for when Ed and his team come out for a very pleasant day. They're also doing spot inspections at the hospitals. Ed did one of my ambulances today. He was very polite and easy on us, so thank you, Ed. But the state is out also doing spot inspections at the local hospitals and stuff like that. They were out at Eastern Niagara today. They know where that is, so that's a good thing. It's too bad it's gonna be closing in a couple months, but you know, they found it.
You gotta get them all in before it closes.
Yeah, they do. There, as from the CON committee or the systems committee, there's a lot of municipal CONs that are working their way up through the state. More recently, we expect to see more in the next year or so. And from an operations standpoint, contracts are progressing, so that's good news for us that our advanced gateway is starting to go through as we continue to look for our funding. Training and ed, they're continuing to process applications, working on a training and educational regional plan, discuss some PSI concerns. They've started a Zendesk that you can reach out to any issues that any of your providers or students are experiencing. You can put the issue in through the Zendesk, and it allows them to recall and review those and take those issues to PSI. Just as PSI starts to work out the kinks, there's going to be an RFP going out later this year for a new not an LMS, but a new electronic testing site. So my guess is that it will change again. It will probably experience the same problems we've been experiencing with PSI for the last 3 years when we make that change. But you know, we'll see how that goes. There's been some policies that have been released, especially 2202. Make sure that you look at that. Mike sent those out through the listserv. Course funding, we'll talk a little bit under the Finance Committee. A quick teeny is that there was roughly, I think, 10,000 or 12,000 students that came through New York State's doors last year, so that's a good thing. Regulatory changes, no updates generally there, except finally that the equipment changes that were voted on and approved back before COVID started are probably like 2 or 3 layers below the commissioner's desk to sign. So hopefully they can get to the commissioner's desk in the next few weeks or the next few months, that the commissioner can sign them, and then we can start to follow the new Part 800 regulations as far as equipment. Just as we're going to start to do that, the Safety Committee of the REMSCO is going to begin another review of Part 800 and equipment. So probably by the time this gets voted in, we'll have other updated changes that will probably take a little bit to get worked through. The Rural Task Force has been formed and is actually up and running. They had their first meeting at the during the February meeting at the state meetings. So that's up and running. EMS Memorial, unfortunately, the original plan that they had fell through due to supply chain issues. So kind of they're going to go back to the drawing board for re-envisionment again. Unfortunately, anybody going on the wall this year, there's actually enough space, but this will be the last year that they can afford to put anybody new on. So hopefully that the new memorial will be up and running and finished by next May. Med standards, there were protocol changes that were approved. I'll let Dr. Lynch touch on those when it comes up to his report if he so chooses. The Finance Committee is looking at ways with a couple other bodies on the workforce shortage that we're seeing in EMS currently. Right now, they're trying to guise it as a public health emergency to try to increase funding within New York State to focus on education. And we'll talk about that in the Part S conversation as we get into new business as well. The goal is to work on having anywhere between 70 and 90,000 providers in New York State. The current numbers now are roughly 70,000 providers that are listed in New York State website. However, out of those 70,000, probably 30 to 35,000 have actually ended up on a PCR. So you can probably either further deduce that if you take one call, you show up. So if you took one call at the beginning of January and you're no longer in, you know, that's just another number that is just counting that is not available for service. Some of the solutions that they've worked on is scheduling more free classes, more support for AEMT, and then state support for paramedic tuition. There is a couple avenues out there currently that some grants and scholarships for prospective paramedic students. If anybody's interested, I can get you guys that information. Also looking at help to increase program agency funding, which hasn't been increased in over 20 some years. Basically, the request that they put in for this year was a total of $15.7 million, roughly 10.2 to teen training and education, $500,000 increase to the local REMSCOs, which would be us, and then a $5 million increase to our program agencies that support the REMSCOs. So as we all saw in the governor's budget, some of that money was allocated in a way, but we don't know how it will look in the final carve out and the final language when it gets approved. We had, between this last meeting and the meeting in December, there were 5 CON actions that were voted on by the REMSCO to overturn some decisions that were made by the local REMSCO on appeal. Fortunately, one of the 5 came to an agreement before it actually got to the SEMSCO, so we just voted on the arranged agreement from there. Another discussion was the open meetings law, about potentially changing that. When they started to look into it, it was almost gonna be an impossible lift because it's in statute. Trying to change statute will be almost impossible or take years to change. So what they're trying to do now is investigate whether or not, at least from the REMAC level, if those fall under general construction law, which relates to the open meetings law, that you have to have X amount of people there, you have to have it in a public space, and you have to have it in public. And you have to, if you're gonna have it virtually and off-sites, you have to make those available to the public as well. So we're investigating that, or the legislative committee is investigating that now. Hopefully we'll have an answer by the May meeting. If you're wondering, the REMAC is a subcommittee to the REMSCO, so the likelihood of that having to be an open meeting is kind of a coin flip, 50-50, so we'll know more as we progress. Ed, when's the EMS Memorial in May?
Oh, gosh, it is.
Is it the 23rd?
Thank you.
It'll be May 23rd at 11?
Yeah.
11 a.m. All SEMSCO and CMAC meetings are posted for the rest of the year. Mental health program. Is it Lisa Solomon?
Jennifer.
Jennifer Solomon, right? Jennifer Solomon has been going around the state doing virtual, in-person mental health programs for providers. If you're interested, let me know. I can give you her contact information so you can reach out to her if you're interested in having one at your agency. Or if we're interested in having one in the region, we can invite her to one of our meetings to have a half-hour education session on that. Like I said, we'll talk about Part S and under new business.
Andy,
Yes.
under that mental health, we just got a accident and sickness policy from VFIS. And in addition to that, they were promoting a brand new mental health policy that they were having for firefighters and EMTs.
Okay.
And it was $11 and some odd cents a person. So no, it was only out for like a few days before we got the thing, so, Mark Paglia, our agent, didn't know much about it, but that apparently is coming.
Okay. Thank you for that. I did not know.
Neither did I.
So as we discussed, there was, for under training and ed, there was 10,756 students that entered New York State doors last year for CFR, EMT, AMT, and paramedic. There were 892 new CFRs, 8,972 new EMTs, 203 AMTs, and 689 paramedics, and there was 64 different paramedic classes throughout New York State. For those of you that care or want to travel, there are 2 new PSI sites that any provider in New York State can sign up for. One's in Burlington, Vermont, and one is in Erie. The BLS practical skills exam that was supposed to go live in 2023 has been pushed back to the earliest of 2024. When they started to do some trial and testing on that, they determined that if anyone's not familiar, the new BLS practical skills exam is more critical thinking than it is actually just rote skill going through, how to turn an oxygen tank on or how to do a BLS airway or anything like that. So there were vast issues with how they were being graded. So the state and training and education decided they need to rewrite an education policy for the educators and get that out to them before they can roll out the new BLS practical skills exam. So the earliest that we'll see that new skills exam will be in 2024. Finance Committee is already working on the 2024 governor's budget. If anyone's unfamiliar, Chautauqua County CON was one of the CONs that we discussed in February. The SWRMS this REMSCO which is Southwestern Regional REMSCO, which is Chautauqua, Allegheny, and Cattaraugus, voted to vote down Chautauqua County CON. The SEMSCO reversed that decision in February, so Chautauqua County was able to continue with their service to the residents. Physician fly car, I know we talked about this beginning in September. There's actually no way for New York State to grant a physician to have a fly car without going through the credentialing process. So if they're with an agency, they can easily get credentialed. They just have to have the stickers on. And that's about it. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Moving on. Treasurer report. Cora is sick, so we have no report there. Sean, do you have any update on any sort of things we've done?
Yeah, the only thing is, I know, I checked with the bank. Colleen had called me, asked me to call the bank because I'm still on there as a signer. And the funds that the state owed us, they finally paid around $5,600 and some change. So our account balance is now 18,900 something, so that we can in turn pay, I believe it's Lake Plains, back the money that we owe them. So finally things are gonna, it looks like they're gonna start rolling in funding wise, so that's kind of a good thing, but we'll see how that goes. That's all I know.
Any questions for Sean? We'll move down to program agency report. Mike?
Hey everybody, for those of you who I haven't met yet, Mike Shaw, I'm the new Associate Director at UBMD. Kind of have a long list here. Some of you I've spoken with regarding the portal, the UBMD portal, and everybody's been doing a really good job getting providers on there. There are a few agencies that have not done a lot with it, and we're going to be reaching out to you. If we haven't touched base and you're here tonight, just I can get you on tonight. Why is the portal important? Previously, you did your skills, you sent copies into Lake Plains, they filed them all, they held them in a vault, whatever they did with them. Skills credentialing now is all done online through the portal. You do your skills, you save your copies, and you just keep them there. You do all your credentialing through the portal, the report is submitted, we see it, and it's done. It's quick, it's easy, you can do group updates, you don't have to do a single person at a time. Once you guys dig into this and learn how to use it, it's gonna be so easy, and you're gonna be like, we should have had this a long time ago. I've personally been dealing with this portal for years now, ever since it first came out, because I'm sorry, I'm an Erie County guy. So we've been using it since its inception, and trust me, it makes it a lot easier. The other nice part about this portal too is it's gonna send you out reminders of, let's say, your agency expiration dates, your provider cards, your CPR cards, and all that stuff. So, and that's automatic, and it sends it to the provider, and it sends it to whoever the contact person is in the agency. So this tool is really, really important, and it's really good. Our goal is to have all the agencies up on it by April 15th. Credentialing starts May 1st and goes through June 30th. So I can't emphasize enough how important this is. So please see me if you're having some issues with it, or you didn't understand the instructions that went out, or you didn't get the instructions. We'll be sure we get you squared away. Vital Science Conference this year is scheduled for October 19th through the 22nd. That's going to be in Syracuse. Just wanted to pass that along. iGel pilot program. We have 2 agencies so far from the Big Lakes region has submitted for the IGEL program. Cambria, you are approved by the state and can go right on ahead and do your thing. That notification went out today. Rapid submitted, and then there's one other that's working on it right now, putting their stuff together. Like to remind everybody, it's a great program, and this is how things happen in New York State and skills are added. There has to be some type of a kind of information and studies behind things to say, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? So that's why it's important. Now, with that said, you have to be a transporting agency or an ALSFR, and you must have all the BLS adjuncts. So you have to have CPAP, you've got to have 12 leave for BLS providers, all that stuff, in order to qualify for the program. If you have that, you're interested in it, please get a hold of me. My contact information is on the report. And we most certainly can't get a hold of me, talk to Rob. I don't care as long as something happens with it if you're interested. AHA training, UBMD, we've rebooted our training site status with the AHA, and we can teach all disciplines. So if you're looking for ACLS, we can do it. PALS, we can do it. Course CPR, we can do it. And we also can do the new advanced stroke life support program, which just came out. And there's not many around that can do that, so we're real proud of that. That is a blended learning class, and that is available to all levels. EMSC, you know, we are still urging agencies, if you don't have a point of contact for, or a PEC person, it would be great to appoint one. EMS for Children survey, that went out. There's a lot of agencies that have not taken part in that survey. It's a very important survey. It's not a survey specific to New York State, but New York State does get data off of it. So I would encourage you guys to log on to the EMS surveys, emscsurveys.org website, and take part in that survey process. Another project we've been working on, and I've spoken with a lot of folks from Big Lakes on, is the HCS system. I've assigned a lot of coordinators already. So one of the other questions that was fielded is why do we got to do the portal? Why do we got to do HCS? Well, we already covered the portal. HCS is a state system, and so basically the way it works is I can log on to HCS and I can verify that you're an EMT. You as a provider can log into HCS and pull up a copy of your EMT card. Let's say if you lose it or something like that. You know, day and age, everything's going digital, everything's going online. So the process now is we used to have one person from an agency that could go on and verify. Now the state says, no, we would really rather have everybody on the HCS system that has a card in New York State. So we are identifying one person from an agency that is the agency coordinator, and we will help you through the process of getting on to the HCS system. We will elevate your privileges from a basic user to a coordinator status, and then you will then assist your providers on getting onto the HCS system. So it's pretty cool. It's not something that you're going to use all the time, but it's there in the event that you do need it. And then you don't have to go through the whole, hey, I lost my card, I sent this form into the state, but I haven't heard anything. Now you can just get your card. The next state EMS meeting, May 9th and 10th, Troy. The last thing is I'm not even going to touch on the inspections. I think that was already beat up. So recruitment and retention. So we've been working hard towards kind of beginning to address the recruitment and retention in our areas. So we have launched a website, recruitmentemswny.com, and it's already launched, it's already online. We're looking for ideas, we're looking for One of the ideas that I heard was, you know, having some type of a, what did you call it, Sarah?
Oh, so I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but just before COVID hit, New York State tried to come out with the EMS on tour stuff. Ed, please nod your head that you know what I'm talking about. So it was like 2019, right before COVID hit, and what it did is it encouraged all EMS agencies to get out in the public and be front and center. I know Rapids, Twin City, and several other volunteer departments, we got together in Runnings parking lot, and we just had a fun day doing just a little hands-on training with the public, a little bit of public education. And we got people, because we had the trucks with the lights and stuff going, to come over and hear what we had to say and try and get some new members and show them what EMS was all about.
So basically, things like that, we would like to start fostering through this. And it could be used as an informational guide, like, you know, how to become an EMT, where can I take classes and stuff like that. Sometimes people just don't know where to start. There's form fillers on here, so if somebody wants to, you know, work at Mercy EMS or Twin City, they can fill out a form, and, you know, we can redirect that to their HR department, or if they want to volunteer, if they're interested in more information, they fill out a form, we'll push that out to that agency. I guess when we were looking at this, we said to ourselves, there's got to be a beginning point. We all have ideas, we all think about this stuff, but we got to have a beginning point, and let's put it on paper and let's see how we can make it evolve and go with it. So if anybody wants to take part in that little project, if you've got ideas, get a hold of me. I'm all ears. We want to make this work somehow, even if we add a few bodies, and we have had action on it already. We've pushed a couple of applications out, and so it is working. Inspections were talked about, LMS system. So we are very close to finishing up, well, we've kind of already committed to it, an LMS system through CipherWorks. And CipherWorks was used in the past, well, first of all, it's used for vital signs, but it was used for protocoling services and stuff like that. We are going to be offering that free of charge to you folks. So it's another learning management system, but we're going to hopefully be putting a lot of good stuff up on there, like the preceptor classes, officer informational classes and such. So that's been Rob's big project, but it takes a lot in the back end building this up. So we're looking forward to that. But once again, it's no money out of the pocket of the council or you folks. So BLSFR agencies I've reached out to a lot. In going through some of the past paperwork, I noticed that a lot of recertifications or certifications were done in bulk at one time. So we've noticed some coming very close to expiration, or a few that may have expired that we have remedied. But if anybody has any problems doing that, not knowing the process of going through that recertification, please get a hold of me and we'll get you taken care of. Especially if you're involved in CME, you guys really need to be on top of it. Finally, last but not least, my contact information is there. My sole responsibility at UBMD is this region. Okay, I mean, yeah, I'll help out Erie, Wyoming, but I am tasked with you guys. So you name it, as long as it's legitimate and I can do it, I'll do it for you. Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Does anybody have anything else for Mike with UBMD? Sean?
Hey, Mike. You were saying, I remember this before, or at least in our county, number of people are coming up on their BLSFR recertification. Do you have a list of all the agencies within the Big Lakes region and can get it out for when people's expired?
And that's the nice part about the portal, is once you're up on the portal, it's going to send you reminders. 90 days, right? 90 days, 60 days, and 30 days. But I do have a list. in the office of everybody's certifications and when they do expire, including the DLCs.
Okay, I'm just looking like in the county level, because that's great for the agency, but if the county doesn't know, they can't push the department to say, not that they have much
Right.
say, but still
And the
prod
list
them
is done
along.
manually, so it's
Okay.
not like I can press a button and,
Okay,
but.
all right, no
But
worries,
we
I
do have it.
just was wondering if,
The other good thing about the portal is we can give what we call unlisted access to Scott, John, or whoever he designates, and they can go on and look at all the agencies. and
okay,
see.
oh, that'd be good,
Right.
yeah.
One
Okay.
question I have is how easy is it to change the person of contact?
The primary,
Yeah,
click of a button.
Clickable button. You mean for the portal?
for all the stuff that we need to have a person of contact for.
Right, so the portal, what we would do is we would want correspondence from the chief of the agency before we go in and change anything like that. But it is a click of a button. But, you know, we want to avoid a situation where, you know, John Doe says, hey, I'm the new agency contact, and it's just a phone call, and then somebody from our office just goes in and changes it, but that really wasn't what was supposed to be done. So that's why we ask for a correspondence from the chief line officer.
The reason I asked, if a person is, it's done it all, and then all of a sudden no longer belongs to the agency, and nobody knows how to do it after that.
Right, and I understand that, and you can have more than one agency contact, but there's only one primary contact, okay? So, you know, prior to me working for UBMD, I was an agency contact for Holland, but yet we had a primary contact as well. As an agency contact, I could still go in and add members and stuff like that. So you don't have to be stuck with just one person being a contact in the portal. You could have more than one. But for those agencies that don't want to have more than one, you know, once again, we would have to have correspondence from a chief officer that says, hey, you know, this person needs to be taken out, we're gonna put this person in, and we have no problem rolling out, you know, training stuff to that person to say, hey, this is how you do this is how you do that. And the same thing with HCS, we can make some changes on that. But once again, it's, you know, we need correspondence from a chief line officer that says, hey, that's wrong, this is what it needs to be.
Does anybody else have anything for Mike? All right. Scott then, you have anything from Catholic?
Nothing new. Everything seems to be status quo for now. St. Mary's, we're working on keeping the turnaround times as short as possible, but as with every hospital in, I think, New York State, it's a work in progress, so,
Thank you.
but no update.
Dr. Lynch, Medical Director report?
Yes. Thanks for the comprehensive review of the CMAC and REMSCO meeting. Really just only a couple things to add, to piggyback on Scott's comment about turnaround times. Warding still remains a major issue. Most of that is due to staffing. Staffing primarily on the inpatient units is what causes further back up into the ER. Either units are closed at particular hospitals because they don't have the staff to run them. They're either closed for a couple days or closed for half a day or closed for longer than that. And that creates less opportunity for patients to go upstairs. That leaves only one place for them to back up, which is the ED. If patients in the emergency department are stuck there waiting for beds upstairs, that's less patients that can come back to the waiting room and less rooms for you to put your patients in when you come in. So it's a big problem, not only statewide, but nationwide, and it absolutely affects patient care, both in the emergency department and in the 911 system by having ambulances sit in the hospital. So that was discussed a bit at the state meetings, and as Andy mentioned, some of those discussions went over to the Capitol for kind of further discussion with some of the state leadership on primarily staffing. And finding new people to come work is challenging. Meeting pay expectations is challenging. And trying to maintain the hourly rates that traveling staff that come in from out of town demand is challenging too. So I try not to be a pessimist, but this is really a multifactorial problem that we feel every day in the ER. I'm sure you're feeling it when you and your colleagues are bringing patients into the hospitals. When I worked on the ambulance, we would always wonder what would happen when the doors opened and how many people were waiting in line in front of you. So, you know, if there are specific issues or out of the norm wait times, you know, you're welcome to reach out to Mike and Rob, and they know how to get a hold of me at any time, and I can, you know, try to help on a higher level if possible. And I know how to find the Department of Health, so they're painfully aware. So that's kind of been an ongoing discussion really now for the span of a couple state meetings. We asked for a state EMS medical director position to be created. That is not going as fast as any emergency provider would like, but we are assured that that process that process has started. That would be nice for the doctors to have a state EMS medical director for us to go to help try to move the needle on a statewide level. There was a discussion about looking at the BLS statewide protocols and the collaborative protocols and just making the collaborative protocols the statewide BLS protocols too. There was actually, and chime in Andy, there was a lot more discussion to that than I had anticipated, and I'm not 100% sure that we came to a clear conclusion on.
Still a lot of ambiguity with that,
Yeah.
yes.
So that was really it. I apologize if there are other protocol changes from the med standards. I don't have those
They
notes in
were
front of me.
small, little minute, there were some linguistic changes.
Just one last thing. If your agency is kicking around the idea of applying for the iGel program, if you're thinking about it, I would do it. You know, EMS is strapped for people, and response times can be longer than we want. And if your agency or an agency that you know of is thinking about it, they have the resources or they're close, I'd be happy to help. I know Mike and Rob would be happy to kind of help you through the process, but if it's something that you're thinking about, the iGel devices themselves are really easy to use, and it really could potentially make a difference, especially if you have the stuff to do it. Training your people is not hard. It's really not hard. So I would just ask that you seriously consider it, or at least reach out to these guys and just have a honest conversation about doing it. But I wouldn't be intimidated by it, and it really could help potentially make a difference in caring for a patient. So that's really the updates that I have.
The only thing I'll add to the iGel study is that you have to have BLS 12 lead. So if you're concerned that that might be an issue, reach out to Rob and Mike or Dr. Lynch. They might be able to point you in a lower cost
Yeah, we'll give you a
solution
monitor.
for a 12 lead.
They're gonna be waiting for me in the parking lot.
Coming out of that is.
And then the other thing too that Dr. Lynch alluded to was the BLS statewide protocols and the collateral protocols meshing. The only certainty that I know that actually came out of that meeting is that instead of having protocol changes throughout the year, there'll be protocol changes that take effect once per year. So you can submit protocol changes throughout the year. They will be discussed, but voted on. It will happen one time a year, and I think it's going to happen in the going forward is September meeting,
Yeah,
December meeting,
towards the
so
end
that
of the year.
they'll be able to
End of each year.
start for the following year. So that is some good news. So providers won't be concerned about what happens if, did this new protocol take effect, did this new protocol take effect? More consistent approach from the state to not push out new protocols every couple months or every couple weeks. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Lynch? Before I turn it over to Lisa, the Department of Health, I know this, you may or may not have this question. As of now, EMS providers still need to wear masks while they're on all calls, and need to wear masks when they're in hospitals, in the hallways and in patient areas. They can put the mask down when they go into non-common patient areas or the EMS room, but all patients coming into the hospital and still need to have a mask. All providers, as of right now, still should be wearing masks on all calls, all patient contacts, and any and all places where there's patient treatment areas in the hospital or in hospital hallways. Lisa, do you have anything from the department?
I would never deny Ed a chance to speak to his adoring public, so I will let him answer that.
Thank you. You've got to do an icebreaker, yes. From the state side, just a couple things. From an agency perspective, and I know you guys, really excellent reports from the state meetings, and appreciate Dr. Lynch and program agency, and you from really detailed, and I had 32 things on the list, I've got down to 4, so I think that's, or 5 maybe, but just a couple updates from agency, full service agency inspection. We've been, absentee since, in a sense from COVID. If you're an agency leader and you have not gone out with your crews to check and verify. We always say trust but verify, but we are finding some pretty remarkable things, and you would think that that's a positive thing, but we're seeing some stuff that's been expired for 4 or 5 years, that stuff that is deteriorated, stuff that is that you could grow corn in the back of ambulances, dirt, crime, blood, other potentially infectious materials that really shouldn't be there. So from the and there's also a significant amount of items, and so you can debate this or not, but from a clean and sanitary standpoint, the expectation is everything that has an expiration date on it has to have a valid date, that it's not beyond the expiration date. We can argue that, full reports maybe shouldn't have an expiration date, or, whatever your opinion is, but from the state health department side, if it's got an expiration date on it and it's beyond it and it's expired, then we certainly shouldn't be finding narcotics or other primary medications in your ALS box that are expired. We're finding a bunch of those, so some of it may be complacency, some of it is thinking that somebody else is doing it, and I know that everybody's wearing multiple hats and you're doing this stuff for free at times and those kind of things, but the expectation is we set the minimum standards, and there are a lot of agencies that are exceeding and doing extremely well. I will certainly say that, but we're finding things that are pretty really unacceptable. I wouldn't want that to get me in something you're coming to me, so and whoever that lucky person is, I'd like this stuff to be clean, sanitary, and within date, so that I potentially could live. But same with your family. So I would just remind folks to trust but verify, and check to ensure that your vehicles are compliant with the 800 standards. So thank you there. Couple other things on we've moved over from an agency renewal perspective. If you go to the New York State, if you just Google New York State DOA TMS and you click on the upper left-hand side under forms, that's where you'll be submitting your agency renewals. In there, one of the things that we added on that portal is a mandatory upload of your current policies and procedures. Those policies and procedures are required under 800 section 821P, and it's 1 through 12. It includes the 12 things. If you don't have those, or if you're not familiar with those, a lot of them we're finding, hey, we've had these since 1995. We would much prefer that those are up to date, that they've been reviewed, and that they're still current. That's fine, but if it's more than a few years old, there should be a revision date and an update on it. And also, that those are the minimum ones that we have to have, including mutual aid, including hazardous materials, including maximum call receipt, patient cannot be located. Just to name off a few. A lot of you obviously have them, but we'd ask that you review 821P 1 through 12 and ensure that your agency is compliant with those. Controlled substance portal, on the same note, if you're a controlled substance agency, the renewal portal, it's more than made changes that if you're doing an initial, controlled substance application, if you're doing interim changes, if your base changes, your CEO changes, your medical director changes, if your supplier agreement changes, all that kind of stuff, there's an option for interim changes. The renewals are in there. We've downsized, we worked with B&E for the last month or so to reduce the number of documents that are required on a controlled substance renewal if changes have not been made. So I would encourage you to go in and look at that portal. It's on the forms page, it's sort of at the bottom. You can kind of get familiar with it and go from there. In addition to that, if you're a controlled substance agency, we've added the semi-annual reporting to go. So you go in, you select your regional office, which obviously will be Western for us, and it'll also immediately go to B&E. So they're changing the forms, the forms will be changed and modified, so everything will go through that portal, and it's sort of a one-stop shop as far as B&E will get it, we'll get it, and everybody will be on the same page. But the primary processing of controlled substances, I know there's a lot of BLS agencies in here, so I don't mean to bore you, but the primary processing of controlled substance renewals will really be done primarily by the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement effective April 1st. We'll still have coordination of investigations, inspections, and we work collaboratively with them, but they're going to take the renewal process. We'll do the majority of the initial controlled substance application. So just some detail there to have situational awareness on. One of the things that we're working on, we pushed up a policy statement, it's not approved yet, but there's been a new MOLS form that you may or may not see. The MOLS form has been updated to include do not transport, and in addition to that, New York State currently our policy from 1999, state of the art, up to date, which was frequently asked questions about DNRs and MOLS forms and what the MOLS law is. We will accept, once this policy statement gets approved, healthcare proxies will be approved for EMS providers to accept a healthcare advocate or a healthcare proxy. So policy statement is under review now, that is not out, but I'm just noting that you may see the new MOLS form, which is published on the website. It's probably gonna take a bit of time, but there are, instead of if pain cannot be controlled, it clearly says do not transport to the hospital, medical control options, and the policy statement will be clear and give you a lot of scenarios. We're also hopefully rolling out within the next 2 months on Vital Science Academy, CyberWorks, and others, excellent training, which will be a whiteboard, which will have multiple scenarios on the MOLS form and the scenarios to go with it for EMS providers. So just look for that, and I would strongly encourage everybody to take that training once it becomes available. So I think that was about it, unless there was questions. Dr. Lynch has a question. Go ahead.
Are you aware if any members of the CMAC or medical directors have the opportunity to weigh in on the education that's being put out about the MOLS?
Yes.
We get frequent questions
Yes.
over medical direction.
Well, actually, if you, so Dr. Dorset has basically put this together. They're looking for a diverse group of individuals that are EMS providers that they've recruited across the state. Dr. Cushman, Dr. Dorset, and a whole slew of EMS providers. We've been working on this for about a year and a half. So those scenarios, I could send you right now the current ones that are going to be in the training. It's a whiteboard and the script is there. I'll send it to you.
Great.
And if you have questions or suggestions about additional, I'll get you back.
I have it, yeah.
Maya's been wonderful with it. So
Okay. I was gonna nominate
Dr.
Dr.
Bob has
Seth to
been
handle that.
involved. A good amount of work done. We have already had sort of our divisional legal affairs approve the additional stuff, but training, I'll send it to you right now.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, the protocols, it would be nice if Mike could send out that link so we can get into them, because I wasn't able to write them down. The forms that for all.
Oh, the form, yeah, we could, yeah, Mike, can you send that out, the forms link? Yeah, so you can see it. It's, yeah, very good. If you do go to the New York State DOH EMS website, it's upper left, it says forms, and then there's a drop down for every level, And EMS, it's EMS agency operations is where everything is.
If
But we'll
my,
send out the link.
my memory isn't gonna be
No,
that
no,
good.
understand. We'll make sure that we get that out. Is that okay with the program agency?
And I assume that,
Thank you, Rob. Rob will send it out with the minutes.
the new most order will be the same ugly purple?
Yes, well, yes, that's the plan, yes. It's not, the question is whether it, here's the situation. It is available online, so it could be white, it could be, you know what I mean? I mean, people are, basically it's still the bright, pink. The original form would be pink, but a copy is acceptable, keep that in mind. And then the next project that we're working on after that would be, New York State is moving towards e-most, electronic, but that's gonna take a long time for us to get through. Some of the hospitals don't use e-most currently, so, but eventually that'll get to an electronic format and we'll go from there. But yes, it's the pink form is what you'd be looking for on the fridge, hopefully.
I usually tell them to look for the ugliest color that they can find, and
Yeah, it's bright pink.
So will do not send to the hospital, which is what I think the current verbiage is.
Yes, that's correct.
That's changing to,
Well, the current verbiage is unless pain, unless pain cannot be controlled, but now it's very, very clear. It says do not hospitalize, do not send to the hospital. So EMS will be very cognizantly aware of that. And then the other, just so you know, Dr. Lynch, the coordinated effort that we've had has been basically stemmed from some issues that were in this region from adult homes and that kind of stuff. So we did some, there is EMS education for adult homes and EMS providers. The one on adult homes for, basically goes through all the different regulations, talks about group homes, adult homes, and, the wide spectrum of available levels of care for each of those facilities and that kind of stuff. But there was a blended one that was for adult homes and EMS to sort of level set and to understand that, hey, this is what's coming from the new form, and what is the appropriate level of care for an individual, and how often the frequency of the assessments need to be done. And a lot of those adult homes have no nurses or, providers. It's basically just a, sort of like an apartment that has some monitoring. So we've got to keep that in mind when you're, and we also, there's also the fall study that we're sort of looking at from the perspective of reducing the number of activations and EMS and that kind of stuff with the adult homes. But there's a lot of work in progress that's on it. But, so, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just two things. When Ed talks about policy review, it's always good. It's time consuming and it's boring, but it's good administrative practice to make sure that you review your policies annually. You don't have to do them all at one shot, but just make sure if you do review them, you just put reviewed and put a date on there because it makes things a lot easier. And if you do update, make sure you put a revised date on there when it was revised. It's also good to make sure you pass out to your members or kind of go over it on an annual basis with them. So there's been a lot of changes with labor law in the last few years as well, for those from the paid staff, but also from the volunteer side that would fall under certain labor law changes. Make sure you're keenly aware of that. And then lastly too, if you're a BLS if you do blood glucometry, make sure before the state comes that you have your CLIA license. If you don't have one, it's very simple. Just go on the Wadsworth website, fill out the application. I think it's a $200 fee. Make sure you do that. Keep the receipt so when the state comes, you're covered under SAPA because the application's pending. That's one of the things that they've been looking at in the last little bit. So make sure that you guys have that. If you have any questions, Mike will be able to help you with that process and point you in that direction.
Just one more thing on, if you are a 100% volunteer agency, you are exempt from that fee, you just have to send in page 2 of your 206 application that you submitted to us, and that's how the Wadsworth Lab will verify that you have 0 paid providers. So, but you have to request that exemption from that fee, and not you gotta pay.
Is it, that's ambulances only, right, the way I understood it?
If you do blood glucose testing at any level, you have to have the CLIA license.
Yeah, but the free waiver was.
Oh, the
only-
waiver is ambulance only, not first response. Yes, I
Right.
got you, Fred, thank you.
Just
That is
double check.
correct, yeah.
Because we just sent our check in, so.
Unfortunately, I don't know why it was set up that way. You would think there'd be an exemption for BLS first response agencies that are 100% volunteer, but it's only set up for the clinical lab. Looks at it from, it has to be an ambulance side, and, I had this go around with a few of the agencies. I agree that they should be exempt, but we just don't, it's not in their mechanism to allow it to happen, so if there is a fee associated with that. They're not an ambulance service.
Welcome to New York State.
Yeah.
I
I know.
Good point, though. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Anything else for Ed or Lisa? If anyone's not aware, Lisa is new to the Bureau. She came in and she started in that weird time frame because you guys have a pay period that starts on Thursday, which makes no sense whatsoever. But was it December or November? September. That's what I
It's been
thought.
a while.
So Lisa's been here. She is now out on her own. You have a car now? You're good? No car yet? No car yet? She does have uniforms though, so that's a step.
Yeah, we're moving forward.
That's good.
Bureau.
Did you get Don's tires fixed yet?
Yes.
Good. That was a process. Training and ed, Sarah.
Andy did a really good job talking about like the practical skills exam that took up a lot of time. 2 new committees have been formed, the training and ed committee. The first subcommittee is going to look at certified lab instructors, certified instructor coordinators, on how they would achieve that certification. We're going to take a look at the policies and see if there's any way that some folks can be fast-tracked. Like if you're a fire instructor, you've already earned your teaching degree, maybe you don't have to take the NAMSE course. Taking a look at the practices for CLI and CIC for certification. The other subcommittee that was formed is between training and ed and finance, and we're going to look at different class models and how to get different funding models out there so that course sponsors aren't losing a ton of money because they have 20 students sign up and only 5 pass the test at the end. Because all of their money that they get is based upon student pass rates. So we're going to look at alternative models to kind of break that up a little bit. So they're not hemorrhaging money, but we put good providers still on the road.
Thank you. Any questions for Sarah? All right. No report for bylaws, no report for finance. Rick, do you have any other CON actions or any potential things pending?
No applications.
Thank you. All right. We're at 68 minutes. I'm going to try to get through the next part as fast as I can. I know Part S will take a large portion of the conversation, so I'm sorry. Old business. We do have our awards dinner next month, April 26th. All council members are invited at no cost. We hope to see you all there. It starts at 1800.
Hors d'oeuvres at 5:30. Hors d'oeuvres at 17:30. Dinner at 18:30. And it is a cash bar. Shelby.
Shelby where?
Shelby Fire Department. I'll be sending out the invitations. If not, give me till Wednesday next week, and you guys will have your invitations in your emails. Guys, we need people to honor at this award center. I've received 1 submission out of the 3 counties. So you got a lot of really good providers, you got a lot of really good agencies out there. Let's start recognizing them. Need to have submissions. I was asking for them no later than March 31st. I think that's a Friday, so we can probably carry it through the weekend. But let's start recognizing some of these folks that are out there doing good things.
As a reminder, the award winners that we choose at our dinner will go forward to the state as well to be in the running for the state awards as well. So just kind of, to Sarah's point, just keep that in mind. And even if it's something little or you wouldn't otherwise think that they should be honored, let's try to get them honored and let's try to move this forward. We like to have this as a long-lasting tradition going forward. So, all right, new business. Dr. Lynch, I got a letter, or Mike got a letter, then forwarded the letter to me. Dr. Lynch's appointment as our CMAC representative is up as of March 27th. I see no reason to move away from Dr. Lynch as our CMAC representative. Dr. Lynch would like to continue in that role. Does anybody have any thoughts or concerns with moving forward with Dr. Lynch? Didn't think so.
Move that we move forward with Dr. Lynch.
All right. Motion from John Duran to move forward from Dr. Lynch, second from Bob Youngflush. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Perfect. I'll get the letter and get everything else off to the state by March
Thanks,
27th.
everyone.
We're sorry.
It was tense.
So much competition.
Yeah. Started my.
Mike and I have been working on a potential rebrand for our logo. The logo that you see here on the bottom, that's our current logo, is from the 80s that needs to be updated. So as we start to move forward with our rebrand and move forward with a new website, which I'll talk about in 1 second, take a look at the options 1, 2, and 3 to our current one. We'll send out a vote to the group via listserv. Hopefully you guys can vote on there, and whatever one we decide is the one we'll move forward going forward. All right. The next step is that we need to move forward with a rebrand of our website. Unfortunately, Andy Steele had passed over what he had to Mike Krupski. Mike was unable to kind of move forward with that as Andy didn't have everything all set up. So to get our website up and running, which we need to have, will be roughly $2,000 to move forward with that, to put our minutes up there, our business, our membership, our meetings, and everything else. So can I get a motion? Does anyone have any questions, or can I get a motion on the floor to move forward with having Mike recreate our website for $2,000? Bob makes the motion for 2,000. Second by Rick. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All right, that brings us to the last part of the discussion that I have for today is Part S from the governor's budget that outlines kind of a pathway for EMS going forward. I hope the majority of you were able to sit in on the WebExes over the last couple days. Unfortunately, there was an issue with the WebEx on Thursday that was sent out that needed a username and a password from Peter. Peter sends out thousands of WebExes a year, and I don't know how there was a problem with that, but there was. So it left us Monday and today to view. How many people were able to watch the WebExes over the last couple days? I would hope you would, Ed. I appreciate that. I wish you would have been on there. Has everyone had a chance to kind of read Part S in the governor's budget that we'd sent out? Does anybody have any thoughts on it? I guess we'll start there and we'll kind of move the discussion forward.
I thought there was a lot of stick and not much carrot. It seemed like too much of it was vague, and the money sounds like a lot, but when you divide it by 1,200 agencies, the biggest number I can do comes out to 8,300. Most of that apparently is going to be used for advertising and so forth, and I didn't see a whole lot that benefited the volunteer agencies. I was pretty much disappointed. Thursday, you didn't want to be anywhere near where I was, because I'm trying to get on and it's arguing with me, and fire chiefs are notorious for type A's. So I got on Monday, but I was pretty much disappointed with it. I understand wanting to get out there 80% of the time, but if an agency gets out there 10% of the time and they're the only agency that's out there, if we take that away, how does that help? So I thought there ought to be more how we're going to improve this service rather than these are the standards, and if we don't meet them, those are my thoughts.
Does anybody have any other thoughts they'd like to share? I think it's important. I mean, we have to have, kind of my question, or what I would like to do as a council is I would like to have us kind of have a statement or stand on it that we can send off to the state, whether we endorse Part S as entirety, we endorse parts of Part S, and would like certain sections repealed, or we don't endorse Part S at all. I can tell you from the REMSCO at the meeting in February, the governor's budget had just come out. Since we were all there, we kind of had some discussions on it. A lot of the majority of the members didn't have the opportunity to thoroughly review Part S, and the council at the time made a motion to endorse Part S with Section 3033 repealed, which deals with the creation of special districts for EMS. So that was the stance of the REMSCO. I can tell you regions around us, Melrems and Worms, so Wyoming, Earring, and Monroe Livingston, has come out in opposition to Part S in its entirety. And there are many reasons that they have for that. Primarily, the main oppositions for them were the creation of the special districts, and also basically changing the way the CON process is currently run. As of right now, with the current process, we see all CNO actions run through our council. We then make a decision, and that decision is then rendered to the state. Agencies have the ability to appeal to New York State, to the REMSCO. If they don't like the REMSCO decision, they have the ability to then appeal that decision with an Article 78 hearing. So, you know, one of the stances the state has is that 40% of CON actions currently get appealed. The inverse of that is that 60% are handled appropriately and handled efficiently. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, there's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to it, because there is the ability where things can get remanded back down to, not remanded, but potentially allowing the REMSCOs to make a recommendation to the CEMSCO. The new process also takes away the idea of having to have a public hearing for any new CON action, so any new service coming in won't have to have a public hearing. As it presently stands, we have to have a public hearing with any new CON action to allow the public to voice its opinion or opposition to the CON action. They also make mention that about 80% of Part S comes from the tag that worked on Part F last year. I did not work on Part F, but in doing a review, it's not really anywhere close to 80%. There are some linguistic changes that happened that took authority and power from both the CEMSCO and the Commissioner of the Department of Health, where everyone works together, and basically is giving certain parties unilateral authority in decision-making going forward if the governor's budget, if Part S gets approved in the governor's budget. So that's, you know, how I read it in my opinion on it, but I'm just one person. So I don't know, I know there's a few of you that may have some opinions on it, but don't be afraid to share those opinions. This is a safe space. You know, nothing that you're gonna say is gonna be held against you. I know there are a lot of bears, and they talk, you know, some of the things talk about the creation of task force and things like that for EMS, and they specifically referenced the Buffalo Blizzard. Being part of the Buffalo Blizzard, I think it wasn't necessarily a state response. It was a lack of response from all parties involved, from county level on up to the state, because it just happened to fall on a holiday weekend. And as we all know, as in Buffalo, we start to take the stance that it won't be that bad, it won't be that bad. Well, the meteorologist actually got this one right. So we shouldn't stop us from preparing as if it's going to hit us. I'd rather be prepared than not prepared, and we were all caught with our pants down on that one. But, you know, I would say mostly from, and I speak more not from this current region, I speak more from Erie County, which were the vast majority of the problems initiated. I know I had a direct line to John for most of the weekend. He's probably tired of hearing from me, but I was trying to help, you know, them stay away from the essential war zones that was Erie County. So, don't all be shy. Any thoughts, Dave?
Do we have any reference on where how it's cut up in its current state? I know it's being.
So there are, in the one bill, which is the Assembly and the Senate, as of right now, 3008 and 3033 has been carved out. But, you know, that is just one of the things that, you know, will need to be negotiated as they start to sit down and handle the nitty gritty. We are in crunch time. The governor's budget is due April 1st. So, you know, anything that we would need to do would have to happen sooner rather than later. I think it's important for our voices to be heard. This is what we're here for. We are all the subject matter experts in the EMS industry. And I think that, you know, if we're silent on this matter, I'm a little concerned that, you know, for far too long people looked at our region and said, you know, one, they don't either know what they're doing or they're not participating. I would like to see us participate. There's been palpable change within our region in the last couple of years. I'd like to kind of keep that going, and it's been noticed at the state level. So regardless of what we decide as a group, I am willing to move forward and write a letter to how we see fit. But I think it's important that we're on the record nonetheless.
I think the biggest issue is the special district. They're very vague in language in the actual proposal. I know how Dan presented it as far as from the state level during the meetings, but some of that language doesn't really carry back over to the actual writing of language, so it may be construed a different way than how we initially presented it. And the other concern is how those districts carry over regions. I think if you enable the actual individual REMAX with the same kind of thing, you can empower them, because there are some regions in the state already doing
Sure.
a bunch of those activities, as some people highlighted during the webinars. So I think if there's another avenue instead of creating an additional layer.
The big concern for us is that our region is split up into different districts in the current plan. They're using the special tax districts that they used during COVID. So essentially, Erie and Niagara kind of become one district with, I can never get this right. Is it Cattaraugus that's right below Erie on the Chautauqua? Then it's Chautauqua, then it's Cattaraugus. I think Chautauqua and Cat are in there, but Genesee and Orleans and Wyoming are in a different district. And that poses problems when we talk about a REMSCO, because now we have split regions and split responsibilities. So we would still be Niagara, Genesee, and Orleans, but the needs and wants and what's going on might be different between our localities, which I think is a major problem as we currently sit right now. There's a lot of money floating around that I'm highly concerned that it's some money that they have left sitting around, or there's going to be the potential of new taxes down the road in an already overtaxed state. That's great that we have the money now, but I'd rather see the money that they're potentially willing to invest to do something new that isn't going to fix the problem tomorrow. We have able-minded people that can currently fix problems or can try to work on problems, and using that money now would help solve some of those problems. Some of those problems that potentially could be, if they're going to earmark $50.1 million, there's a senator downstate that has a bill that they're working on that will allow EMS providers access to the state retirement and the state healthcare system. Why aren't we talking more about that? Why aren't we trying to build a greater career for our professionals in that sense? We're trying to start something new where, yes, our system is on the verge of collapse every day, but quite frankly, the healthcare system in New York State's on the verge of collapse every day. You have somebody that doesn't want to show up to work, doesn't have to show up to work. We give people more sick time. We give people more time off. It's not just EMS that faces those issues. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of stuff gets funneled down to us, and we're feeling the burden from it, right? There are things that we can do to push things out of the EMS system and out of the hospitals. They talk about, recreating some systems, but that's not going to happen overnight, right? So we're building, regulation is vague sometimes when you first start it, but what's the intent behind it? And nobody really knows the intent right now. We can say what we think it's going to be, but is that in all reality what's going to happen? I don't know. I can't answer that. And I think that's the scary part. It's the unknown, right? EMS were always somewhat like the fire service, always resistant to change, right? And I think EMS has come a lot farther as not being resistant to change, but I think that some of these changes will have catastrophic consequences and unintended catastrophic consequences to the EMS industry as a whole as it presently stands. Now, there are some good things in there, but we have to decide, does taking those good things outweigh the bad, right? And I currently think that if we could take the time of the things that we like in there and try to work with our assemblyman and Senate to try to get some of those things moved forward, that's a better avenue now. Unfortunately, the comment was made that we have a Senate, we have Assembly where those bodies are entrusted to make regulatory changes. Unfortunately, politics has changed in the last 20 years now, where basically if you want substantial change, It's gonna happen in the governor's budget, which puts everybody on a timeline. And unfortunately, we don't get a lot of time to kind of review and work through and work together to kind of help decide how we're gonna do that moving forward. The other stance is if we get Part S completely taken out, there's a good chance, more than a good chance, that EMS doesn't show up in the governor's budget next year. We showed up 2 years in a row. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I have my own personal opinion on that, but, you know, it's kind of, you know, we have the ear now, but I don't know if the changes that we're talking about, because they're very vague and ambiguous, is what's needed for our current system. You know, and I will say this again, I think anytime you have one body that has unilateral authority making power is not good. It's not good for anybody. Because we can make suggestions and make recommendations, but lastly, it's just being heard doesn't mean that it's going to be enacted. And quite frankly, I mean, we've had some regulatory changes happen before COVID and still haven't gone through. So, you know, as we start to work through this, when do we expect these changes to take effect in Part S, right? Also, what happens next year if it does get approved and we don't have anything up and running, does that money get taken away then? And then we're kind of left in limbo where we have these things that are regulation. Do we have to follow it? Do we not have to follow it? Like, what does that look like?
One of the things that I did not see in Part S was the why people volunteer to do this. Until you know why people want to do it, you know, for a career, when I was, a long time ago when I was employed, money made a big difference. But I'm still doing this for some reason. So the task force that Genesee County had didn't answer that question either. So unless we answer that question, I don't see any point.
Well, the point that you're making, I think, John, is that, and I've had some discussions with various people, that the idea behind it is that we're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem and not necessarily understanding the root cause of the problem. I think the sustainability tag did a good job of outlining those problems and putting forth recommendations, and some of those recommendations are in there. I just think that, you know, the idea is you have to understand the root cause before you can kind of fix the problem. And I think right now in some of the issues that we're just putting a Band-Aid over, it doesn't necessarily fix the root cause or the issue, underlying issue. So I guess, you know, does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Any thoughts? And again, don't be afraid to share your thoughts. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion on what we would potentially like to do as a council?
I'll make the motion so we can have the vote. I move that we reject Part S.
We have a motion on the floor from John Durand that we, as a council, do not endorse or reject Part S as a whole. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Second by Bob Youngflesh. On the question, any questions? We get to talk about the motion now.
I like parts of it, except for the special districts was a big concern for me. So there are parts of it that are good, the licensure, some of the aspects of that, but the special districts create some concern. The question is, will the special districts go away as some of the funding opportunities to go along with them go away? I don't know the answer to that.
It's a fair question. Does anybody else anything they'd like to say or have any questions? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion? Raise your hand. We're gonna have to freaking do a roll call vote, aren't we? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You count 18, right? All right. All opposed? Any opposed? Abstain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 abstentions? Okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Can you keep your hands up if you're abstaining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. I count 9. Right? Right. 9, 10. Right, 10. So 18 to 10? Right. So the motion carries. We will, I will write a letter that our region does not endorse Part S. All right. Does anybody have any business they'd like to bring forward before we adjourn? All right. Before we adjourn, 2 things. Our next meeting will be April 26th. No business will be held, but it'll be a dinner for us to get together and have some cocktails if you choose, have some pop and water, and have some food, and honor our providers in our region. Our next business meeting will be June 21st in Niagara County. Hopefully it'll be at the Public Training Safety Facility. I sent an email off asking if we can use that building, but I will let everybody know when it's all said and done. So, without any other anything new, take a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. Perfect. All right. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you for coming.